Good morning. I want to thank all of you for being here today in a bipartisan manner. This is not about party politics right now. It's about the hostages. I can't think of a better time to be having this roundtable discussion than the very week that Prime Minister Netanyahu is visiting to give a joint session before the United States Congress. But we can't forget about the hostages. You know, as we talk about the completion of Gaza, the peace process, we can never forget those left behind, and those are the American hostages. And that is the purpose of this roundtable. And I want to thank all the families for being here today. I can assure you that I and the members here, and I would say all members of Congress, have not forgotten your loved ones. And we will do everything in our power to bring them home. And that's why we're here. We're going to be on a short time frame. We have votes. So I'm going to forego an opening statement because after all, we're not here to listen to me. We're here to listen to you and about your family. So today, without further ado, we have before us Ruby Chen, the father of Ite Chen, who was 19 years old and was murdered by Hamas. We have Daniel Nutra, the brother of Omar Nutra, who is currently being held hostage by Hamas. We have Rachel Goldberg Poland, the mother of Hirsch Goldberg Poland, who is 23 years old, being held by Hamas. Aviva Siegel, who was also held hostage, yourself. And we'd love to hear about that horrible experience for 51 days. You, ma'am, are the spouse of Keith Siegel, who remains a hostage currently at the hands of Hamas. And we're so sorry, but we're so glad you are out of there. Jonathan Dekel Chen, the father of Sagu E. Dekel Chen, who is currently being held by Hamas. And Adi Alexander, the father of Edan Alexander, who is also being held, sir, hostage by Hamas. We feel for you every day. We pray for you every day. We also remember Gad Hagi and Judy Weinstein, American hostages who were murdered and whose family members are unable to attend this roundtable today. We remember each and every one of them, and we will not rest until the remaining hostages are brought safely home. My colleagues and I look forward to hearing your stories, your testimony. And with that, Mr. Chen, I think I'd very much like to turn it over to you.
Now? Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for hosting us, you and this esteemed committee. We know these are challenging times, in the House, so we thank each and every one of you for finding time to be with us. We have decided to be concise in our remarks as well, and would like as much as possible to have a discussion. So only a few of us will address the committee and hope that we could have a conversation with this committee. I'll start with a number, 291. 291 days since October 7th, and I do not think any of us here ever fathomed that we will be sitting here after 291 days and asking something very basic, to be reunited with our family. We have been on this path, and we've been able to meet very good people in this House and across the administration that have opened up their hearts and have been willing to support us in any way possible, and we will be forever grateful to all of you for being here for us during these terrible times. We understand now there's a window of opportunity. It's a unique window of opportunity that both sides seem to be close to getting a deal done. This week started off with, again, terrible news of 2 additional families getting that message of their loved ones killed by Hamas. We have no time. And what we urge the committee members and this House, when the Prime Minister comes to the House, it should be a bipartisan effort to lean on him as well as other U.S. allies in the region to get this deal done and just make it happen. And we would very much like to see the focus of this committee in order to get us to that finish line, in order for us to be reunited with our family members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. Now I recognize Daniel Neutra, his brother Omer was taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th, to give his statement.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Daniel Neutra. I'm 20 years old. Omer Neutra, my brother, turned 22 in captivity in Gaza almost 10 months ago on October 14th. On the day that I found out Omer was kidnapped, I was at college. My dad woke me up at 7 a.m. with a phone call telling me he hadn't heard from Omer since the night before. I spent the whole day in my dorm room reading the news and seeing gruesome images of the atrocities that were happening, wondering if he was okay, and I called him more times than I can remember. When I finally left my room to go eat something, I looked around and no one in the entire building seemed to know what had happened. It was like living in a different reality, and to this day, many Americans are completely unaware that 8 Americans are still being held hostage to this day. Omer is my best friend, and he's always someone I can talk to. And oftentimes, I find myself overwhelmed by the pressure of this situation and the bizarre reality. And my first reflex is to pick up the phone and talk to Omer, but of course, his WhatsApp still says last seen 10 months ago. Instead of speaking with Omer, my family flies around the world, and all of these families. We speak to politicians and the media, we beg for his life. Our lives have been halted and everything else is put on hold. My parents, they take sleeping pills just to get through the night. This is not sustainable. Yesterday, we heard of 2 more hostages that died in captivity after October 7th. That is not sustainable either. Each day is more dangerous and exhausting than the last. Last night, we met Prime Minister Netanyahu again. I have to say, the urgency of the matter did not seem to resonate with him. He did not answer when we asked him why he's only sending his negotiators to keep the process going on Thursday instead of days ago. We must continue to put pressure on all parties involved, including Hamas, to accept this deal now before more people die in captivity. I don't know when was the last time Omer ate, when he saw the sun, or if he smiled in the past 10 months, or if he has enough air to breathe in those tunnels. I don't know if he hears me, if he knows we're fighting for him for 291 days, 7,000 hours, each hour feeling like a year. We can and he can't wait forever. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. I'll be meeting with the Prime Minister, and I will certainly bring up this issue. Next, we have Rachel Goldberg-Paulin, the mother of Hirsch Goldberg-Paulin, for her statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much for hosting this, Chairman. We really appreciate all of you and all of the time that you have given us for these past 291 days. My name is Rachel, and I'm the mother of Hirsch Goldberg-Paulin, who is an American-Israeli civilian, 23 years old, who was attending a music festival that was advertised as for unity, love, and peace. When he was stolen, he was first critically wounded. His left arm, which is his dominant arm, he and I are both left-handed, was blown off. And since then, we've been living on another planet. What I would like to do with the remainder of my time, before I cede the rest of my time to Aviva, is to read a prayer for the government of Israel that has been crafted in the last couple of weeks and has been read by prominent rabbis throughout Israel and people of influence and different politicians. And I think that it's pertinent, and I would like you to hear our words and our prayer. May it be your will, Lord our God and God of our forefathers, that you send your light and truth to the Prime Minister, ministers, and advisors of the government of the State of Israel, and guide them with good counsel. Enlighten their eyes to accept responsible proposals that are placed before them in order to bring about the release of our loved ones that are hostages. Father, our King, help us to bring our captives from darkness to light, so that we may all be crowned with the crown of victory and life. And let us all say, Amen.
My name is Aviva Siegel. I'm Keith's wife. I was in Gaza for 51 days, and I saw everything. I felt everything, and we need to bring them back. We cannot allow ourselves as humans, let them go through one more day like I went through. I was starved while they ate in front of me. I was thirsty because I didn't get any water. I was not allowed to stand or walk or move. Most of the time, I had to keep silent completely, and the only thing we were allowed to do is to decide if we're going to lie on our back or on our side. That's the only human right we had. We were taken underneath ground and just left there with no oxygen. And I want everybody in this room just to think about trying to figure out how to take another breath of air and looking at your husband that you love, that you've been married for 43 years, hardly breathing, and just praying to yourself, let me die first before Keith. I don't want to see Keith dead. We were with people that tortured us, hit us. I saw the girls being beaten. I saw the girls coming after they were touched. I saw the girls coming back and were forced to take a shower with the door open while it was the first time that anybody saw their body. We weren't allowed to hug. I used to hide myself when I had to cry and not let them see that I'm crying, because we weren't allowed to. Most of the time, it was so difficult trying to think what more we're going to go through and what the girls are going to go through. And now I'm here thinking about Keith and the girls, and it's too much for me to handle because I know where they are and who they're with. And I want to ask Bibi Netanyahu, the deal is on the table. We know what's happening today in Israel, in the whole area, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If it won't stop today, it might get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm asking you all, please help us. I'm begging. We need them out as soon as possible. I do not want Keith dead or the other hostages. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you for that powerful statement. We think of Keith and the girls every day. And thank you for that powerful statement. And I'm so glad you're alive and here to tell the story.
I'm lucky to be alive.
Very. I now recognize Jonathan Dekel Chen, whose son, Sagui Dekel Chen, is being held hostage by Hamas.
Thank you, Chairman McCall. Thank you, Ranking Member Meeks. And thank you all for being here today, all members. I think it speaks mountains about the solidarity that we've felt from wall to wall from Congress since October, and we all deeply appreciate that. All of our worlds changed on October 7th. Yesterday, as has been mentioned here, we got a confirmation of 2 more deaths of hostages that we know were in captivity. I'm from Kibbutz Nir Oz, which is ground zero for the massacre on October 7th. We still have 35 hostages remaining. Of those, we've received 7 notices in recent months of those who have died while in captivity. There's a myth out there that there's a better deal somewhere if Israel just delays a little longer and fights a little further, every day another hostage can die, including all of our loved ones, those who may still be alive. All of the Israeli security apparatus and intelligence services, including our defense minister, have clearly stated that all of the conditions are ripe today to complete the deal that's on the table. Something to keep in mind. I believe at this point, as an Israeli American, that any true friend of Israel today must pressure our prime minister to finish the deal now. There is no further, our own security services have said clearly there is no other security issue that cannot be resolved quickly if in principle there's political will to finish this. It is an imperfect deal with Satan. I've lived my entire adult life on the border with Gaza. No one needs to convince me what Hamas is. That's not the question. Israel set out to eliminate Hamas as a force in Gaza and to get our hostages home. Our own security apparatus has said that that mission is complete. It is time now to end this war, to end our suffering, and along the way, to end the suffering of the millions in Gaza who are, in most senses, just as much captives of Hamas as our loved ones are. This must happen now. Our expectation was that the Prime Minister would come to Washington and announce, perhaps tomorrow, that Israel is now moving forward and signing this deal. I implore you, just as you've been supportive of us from wall to wall until now, I implore Democrats and Republicans to do all that you can to let our Prime Minister know that the United States knows that the time is now to sign this deal, get the hostages home, and stop this killing. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. I now recognize Adi Alexander, the father of Eden Alexander, for your statement, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time and for this committee. I'm a father of Eden Alexander, and which is, along with other 119 hostages, is in a situation that no parent should ever have to imagine. Just want to convey the message to our Prime Minister, to Israeli Prime Minister. The hostage deal should be his top priority. We had hoped that he would come to Washington to announce that actually he sealed the deal to bring our kids home. And basically everything short of it will be a total failure for us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for a few minutes. I want to give all members an opportunity. Mr. Meeks, would you have any opening remarks?
No, you waived yours. I want to waive mine. I really want to come here to hear, and I'll just get to the question.
Thank you.
I want to just apologize for being late. The press stopped me because they knew I was coming here, and they wanted to know what I felt about President Biden as well as Prime Minister Netanyahu, who will be here. And I told them that I'm coming to hear you. I read, sorry I missed you. I'm going to hear you probably tomorrow. I'm going to let you every person's story as I forgot because it's close to my heart.
Thank you. Ms. Siegel, you have a unique perspective, having survived this nightmare. Yeah, my first question is, where do you think the hostages are currently located? And are they very close to the vicinity of Mr. Sinwar?
I don't know nothing about Keith. I don't know if he's alive. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's alone. That's the only thing that I can tell you. And that's been for months. 2 months ago, they released a video of Keith, and I could not watch it. I could not see the sadness in Keith's eyes because I know exactly where he is and who he's with and what he feels. But I know that most of the hostages have been taken down underneath the ground, and I'm very, very worried about them. I nearly died there.
Thank you. Last question. I'll be meeting with the Prime Minister. What message would you like me to deliver to him, and for anybody who would like to answer that question?
Mr. Chairman, if I just may recognize the family that is not here today, the Weinstein and Hagi family. We share something, unfortunately, where the Judy and Gadi were killed. They were most likely the first killed by Hamas 6:30 in the morning when they were walking, doing their morning walk at the kibbutz, and they just were there at the wrong time, at the wrong place. And peaceniks, always wanted to see the good in life. Something on behalf of myself and the family itself. Sometimes in the media, when they talk about the U.S. hostages, they mention 5 U.S. hostages. And we would like to just reconfirm to the committee that you can be a hostage and he can also be a deceased hostage. And for us, the Jewish tradition, we say rest in peace, which means the soul needs to come and rest itself. And we urge you to remember that fact when there is a deal happening and we do talk about the U.S. citizens, that we are talking about 8 U.S. hostages. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's very important to recognize all hostages, especially the American, and those who have passed. And
Can I jump into your question as well?
sure. Could you identify yourself?
Sure. I'm John Poland. I'm the father of Hirsch. And in answer to your question about what message we would like you to convey, the message is as follows. I'm sure that Mr. Netanyahu is going to speak to the joint session tomorrow about all of the credible, real, existential threats to the state of Israel. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iran, and on and on and on. All legitimate, scary threats. But we are in a triage situation. We have 120 hostages, at least half of whom are likely no longer alive, flailing and bleeding out on the emergency room floor. Now is not the time to go up to the cancer ward and deal with the sick people who need treatment when there are people dying right now on the floor of your hospital. First you do triage, then you deal with all of the other legitimate issues. And more than that, it has been and is still our belief that in a very tense Middle East, the single event that could happen right now to be most influential on releasing pressure across all fronts in the region is bring home the hostages. It will calm down the north with Hezbollah, it will calm down Gaza, and it will allow the region to deal with the legit, credible, big threats in a more controlled manner. And so it's got to be the priority to bring home these hostages.
Well said. Well said. Mr. Chen, do you have a response? Or what would you like us to say to the Prime Minister?
I think you all represent constituencies in the 50 states, or many of the 50 states. So there is a common ground that you do have with our Prime Minister, in as much as you are politicians, a noble trade. Politicians at some point have to decide to also be leaders, And if you were to speak with our Prime Minister, this is the moment for him to be a leader of our country and not just a politician speaking to a domestic audience in Israel. And so, unfortunately, our Prime Minister over the course of the last nearly 10 months has been speaking domestically in terms of a lot of fantasy. For example, that more and more military pressure on its own is going to get the hostages home. There is no proof of concept. It's been 10 months. There's no proof of concept that this is correct. The 7 hostages who have been rescued by the Israeli army, my brothers and sons, with incredible courage, are the exceptions that prove the rule. They were rescued above ground, lightly guarded. All the rest of the hostages, those who are alive, however many there are, in answer to your question, we know are serving as human shields, as are the people of Gaza in general for the Hamas leadership. There is no military force on earth, Navy SEALs or our special forces, that know how to get hostages out from underground. Whatever has been tried has not been successful. There's been 10 months. Bibi Netanyahu, since 1996, has had his platform being, Mr. Security. He can solve all the problems of Israel's security. Well, Israel is unsecure right now. And whatever still needs to be done, if that's Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, must not be done on the backs of our loved ones and all of the 120 remaining hostages, those who are alive and those who are deceased. So I implore, as I opened with earlier, we ask of you for the 8 remaining American hostages and for all of the 120. It's a very strange request, but Israel needs you right now. Israel needs you to help end this madness. Those of you, particularly who have good relationships with our Prime Minister, now is the time. Waiting more is just a death sentence for all of the hostages, our loved ones who might still be alive, and all of the rest, and will not advance Israel's national interest. So,
Thank you.
I hope that's an answer to
It's
your
very
question.
good. And that's why we had this roundtable, to send that message. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Ranking Member, Mr. Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and again, thank each and every one of you. I want to make sure that I do get to hear stories again, Mr. Chen, Mr. Nutra. Really, it's really important to me. I was going to ask the same question that Chairman McCall asked, because I think it's important that we hear from you. So, and not play politics with this. This is bigger than politics. So my next question then would be, what should we, or would you like us to ask President Biden? Since these are American citizens that are being held, I'll have an opportunity to talk to him and many of us. What should we say to President Biden? What should we ask of him?
Thank you for that. We all know about President Biden's big, difficult personal announcement that he will be dropping out. And what that enables is President Biden to not be caught up in an election season, to not have to be distracted by everything that goes along with being caught up in an election season, and enable him to really focus on his legacy and something that is within his grasp that is super meaningful, super impactful, is continue the tireless work that he and his entire team, Secretary Blinken, National Security Advisor Sullivan, CIA Director Burns, and everybody else have been phenomenally available and transparent and open with us, and we all feel tremendous gratitude. Not only should you not all collectively take your foot off the gas, but put it on even harder and make sure that part of your legacy, Mr. President, is that you get the credit for saving the lives of as many of these hostages as possible and doing the thing that can most release that pressure that I talked about in the region. It is within grasp, and please, Mr. President, please push this until it gets over the finish line.
I'd like to add on that I think this is a unique opportunity for the president, that this can be a bipartisan win. It could definitely be a bipartisan win for the House, for the Senate, for the administration, to get these hostages out, including these 8 U.S. citizens.
Anyone else?
I would like to tell everybody that we were asked if you've got a different passport, and Keith did not tell them that he's American. And I asked Keith a couple of hours later, how come you didn't say that you're American? So he said, I'm scared that they will take me out and leave you there. So I want to think that all the Americans think that the Americans should come out, like Keith thought, and be strong enough not to let Hamas terrorists to rule the world. We need Biden to rule the world, not the terrorists to rule the world, and to be strong enough to get them out. Thank you.
Very good. I now recognize Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Let me
Chairman.
just say, votes have been called, so if
Be
we
very
could
quick.
have some brevity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all for so powerfully sharing the cruelty that has been imposed upon your loved ones. I mean, your witness today before tomorrow's speech and all the meetings couldn't come at a more opportune time. And I think, Mr. Paulin, the idea of a triage is just, that's such a great concept that needs to be seized. And I think all of us here, both sides of the aisle, really do want to make a difference. So I can't thank you all enough. And we will do everything we could possibly do to try to get this done. So I want to thank you.
Okay. Mr. Keating is recognized.
First and foremost, I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss. So sorry for what we put through, not knowing where your loved ones are and their condition they are. That's first and foremost. Evil exists in this world. As I was listening to you, I was trying to imagine somehow my own son in that position. I couldn't comprehend it. It's incomprehensible. We're at a stage now, listening to Voices on the Ground in Israel. I'm on the Armed Services Committee and here in Foreign Affairs. Military, Israel had a right to defend itself, has a right to defend itself. They've gone to this point. I agree with you. I see no more strategic value at this point. This is a shift after enormous effort by our administration. President himself, our Secretary of State, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Hochstein, I could go on and on, full court press, to get to this stage where we can have an agreement with a ceasefire and agreement for hostage release. I was asked by the press if I would listen to the Prime Minister's speech, and I said, yes, I'm going. And they said, what do you want from that speech? I said, I'll listen to him. I want him to listen to me. I want him to come here not to talk, but to listen and to accept a hard-earned agreement. It's this close. Really, we're at that stage, and I'll continue with your support, much more powerful words than mine, to go forward and bring that message forward. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Mr. Wilson's recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and I've met so many of you, and I was grateful to meet with you in Jerusalem. I visited kibbutz near Oz. It's heartbreaking to see, and it's bipartisan. You see who's here today. I was with Steny Hoyer. We want this to be bipartisan. I also want to propose that, to me, Hamas is a puppet of the regime in Tehran, along with Hezbollah, along with the Houthis. And what should be done is that the pressure should be on Tehran. And what should be done, and our administration should do this in a bipartisan manner, and that is actually apply the sanctions we have. Then we also need to apply secondary sanctions, and so that other countries do not buy oil from Iran. The effort should be made in every way to put every pressure on the puppet master, and that's Tehran. And we want to work with you to do that, and I want this to be continue to be bipartisan. But the evil of this circumstance is a country that proposes death to Israel, death to America. You're front line. You're first. They're after us. And so this is indeed in the interest of the American people. And God bless you, and God bless your families. I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Sherman's recognized. Mr. Sherman is recognized.
Thank you. Our hearts go out to you for what's happened to your family. We need to do everything possible to get back the hostages. And yet we know that on October 7th, people who were released by Israel in the hostage exchange for Gilad Shalit were among those who killed, were among those who may have taken your family members hostage. And it's critical that we get the hostages back without planting the seeds for the next October 7th. And I hope very much that when Prime Minister Netanyahu speaks to us, he will lay out what he's planning to do to get the hostages back.
Mr. Chairman, if I can speak.
Mr. Nutra.
I'm the father of Omer, brother of Daniel. And just to reply to your message there, the Israeli army and all the forces there say that they are ready to deal with the consequences of release of any dangerous terrorists. And we have to believe that they know what they're doing. And there's, on October 7, created a situation that we've never been there. 240 people were taken. 120 are still in captivity, among them 8 American. Also to remind here that 45 Americans were murdered on October 7. So this is not merely an Israeli problem, it's an American problem just as well. And Israel is really on the defense line of the modern world, the Western world, and fighting the war. And our children are there, our families are there, and it's a unique opportunity. I'd like to thank the representatives here that support us all along in this tough struggle, and believe that you have a very unique opportunity to speak to Prime Minister Netanyahu and press him to use the unique opportunity right now when Hamas seems to be on their knees to accept the deal, bring our loved ones home, and then, when the time comes, eliminate Hamas and deal with a real octopus head, as we all know it, Iran, because this is the real issue. And that's where we have to focus our efforts in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Poland.
I'd like to also add a response. There's no question that releasing terrorists is a terrible, heavy price to pay. But in addition to the security apparatus of Israel saying we can handle it, Israel is a modern democracy. It is not a theocracy, but religion plays an important role. And it's important, I think, to point out that leading rabbis in Israel, the chief rabbi of Israel, have looked through a Jewish lens on this issue of releasing terrorists and said, there's no question that to save a life today, to bring home hostages today, even if it means increasing a future potential risk of those terrorists, the answer is clear. Jewish law says bring them home even at that price. So that also is something that is clear and should not be holding anybody back.
Let me just say, votes, I've been, thank you for your patience. We're winding down. I'm going to officially adjourn the roundtable, but I want to thank all of you for being here to hear your stories. Very powerful. We will take this message back. We'll relay it to Israel, the Prime Minister. For those members who want to stay here to talk to the families, I don't know if you're going to be around after votes or not, but that would be another opportunity to meet with the members. But thank you for your courage, your strength, Ms. Siegel. Powerful, powerful. And thank you for being here today.